Good evening, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Faraz Patel. We'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, TSTV channel 347. Yesterday, Canada became one of the latest Western countries to say they intend on recognizing a Palestinian state at the UN in September. Now, this comes at a time where a conference was being held in New York at the United Nations to pave a way for a two-state solution. But the question is, can there really be a two-state solution when you have Israel, for example, clearly stating that they have no intention of not only recognizing Palestine, but of course, just last week when its Knesset passed a resolution to go ahead and annex land on the West Bank. The question we ask ourselves is there really going to be a two-state when Israel itself refuses to go ahead and make that happen? Joining me now, she's no stranger to us here at Hilaal TV. I'd like to welcome Muna Tareh. She's a Middle East analyst. She's also part of the Palestinian Feminist Collective. It's a coalition that will be going ahead and hosting a People's Conference of Palestine that's going to be happening at the end of August in Michigan. Let me welcome her here. Muna, always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I mean, Muna, let's look at it. The clear rhetoric by Netanyahu and his government is we're not really going to recognize a Palestinian state. And the question is, what really is the point of having conferences like this when there is no real ending solutions?
I mean, if you are looking at it as a genuine attempt, there is no attempt, at least not one that is rooted in justice. So why hold a conference? The answer is simple, because it serves the interests of the powerful. The so-called New York Declaration, co-signed by 17 countries, calls for a ceasefire and revives this proposed two-state illusion, if I say. However, the fact that these very same countries also provide arms and diplomatic cover for Israel exposes this contradiction. Not only exposes the contradiction in the intention of these states, but also it presents a dilemma for them that we will probably talk about. So how can we, for example, call for a ceasefire on one hand while supplying bombs with the other? How can they speak of justice, for example, while blocking war crimes investigation and voting and vetoing UN resolutions? Furthermore, perhaps more importantly, the timing of this conference is not coincidental. It overlaps with, of course, one of the most extreme humanitarian catastrophes in recent memory. Over 1 million people in Gaza facing stage 5 malnutrition. That's one step away from death. Children are dying from hunger, entire population are being starved, and of course, the infrastructures, including hospitals and bakeries and everything, is collapsing under Israeli bombing. This, of course, has provoked a widespread global public action demanding an end to the Israeli genocide, an immediate delivery of aid, with emphasis, of course, on food, water, medical supplies, and an end to the Gaza siege, arms embargo on Palestine, and, of course, holding Israel and its enablers accountable for its war crimes through international law. So the persistence of these public outrage close to 2 years later, which these countries did not anticipate, presented a crisis for Western powers who, on one hand, claim to respect human rights and international law, and on the other, they continue to supply Israel with this military aid needed to continue carrying on its genocidal practices. Therefore, the very magnitude of the humanitarian disaster, the genocide, the famine, the manufactured famine that is currently going on in Gaza, exposed the hypocrisy of the West. The Western governments, therefore, recognizing the threat of the power of the collective mass mobilization and cross-solidarity movements, they recognize what kind of danger they present to their own political stability, needed to find a way to release some of that public pressure by reinventing or maybe redesigning the ways through which they're able to continue to provide political cover and aid and military aid to the genocidal regime because it serves its regional interest, all while, on the other hand, appearing to be empathetic with the Palestinian plight. This is exactly what this conference is designed to do. Rather than addressing the immediate needs of the people in Gaza, the hunger, the famine, the bombs, the conference revives this illusion of the two-state solution, a framework that has already proven a failure due to the very nature of the settler colonial regime and its respective logic. So this whole initiative and the revival is therefore deployed as a mean to deflect attention from the structural root cause of the genocide and the famine in Gaza. Netanyahu has made the Israeli position crystal clear, and on many occasions. Most recently, he said that there will not be a Palestinian state while I'm minister. Other Israeli officials regularly dismiss European talk of recognition as appeasement of terrorism. For example, Israeli Knesset passed a resolution to annex the occupied West Bank, declaring it to be an inseparable part of the land of Israel. These statements are not.
We seem to have lost Muna. Okay, Muna, do we have you back?
Ethnic cleansing and erasure of Palestinian identity.
Okay, Muna, I just want to get this a view from you. This France and United Kingdom saying that they'll recognize Palestine as a state, but I'm going to get to the UK in a bit. Is that enough, though, to just say we're going to recognize Palestine as a state while the starvation and the famine is still going on?
I mean, we already have 130 countries that recognize Palestine. What good did that do for Palestinians? This proves one thing. It proves that it doesn't matter how many countries recognize Palestine, but it matters which countries that recognize it. And this means that which powerful countries. Resolutions can be posited in the United Nations, and the U.S. can continue to veto it. So in this sense, the France and UK's recognition of Palestine is hypocrisy at a time when they continue to aid genocide, and they do not resemble anything of justice. As a matter of fact, it's morally appalling. These nations are deeply complicit in the very violence that they now claim to condemn. For decades, both have armed, funded, shielded Israeli occupation. Therefore, this sudden gesture toward recognition, while bombs still fall and famine is enforced, ring very hollow, especially to Palestinians. It is not just the timing that exposes this hollowness of these gestures. It is also the framing. Both France and the UK present recognition not as a long overdue acknowledgement of Palestinian right to self-determination, which is the moral and ethical standard to take, but as a political leverage. For example, Macron stated that we are working toward recognition at the to recognize the state of Palestine. However, on the other hand, we also support Israel's right to defend itself. It's like, how could you to what? If you have two parties, one is powerful and one is weak. So what if you recognize the weak? The powerful is still gonna eat you up. The very statement is antithetical to each other in its very essence. Likewise, UK Foreign Secretary stated that if Israel refuses to take steps towards peace, because they wanted to.
Okay, we seem to have lost Muna there. We're going to get her after the break. After this, we're going to be continuing this conversation with regards to this two-state solution conference. Israel clearly has said it. If you've watched many news outlets and many press conferences, Benjamin Netanyahu is clearly not interested in this two-state solution. This conversation continues after the break. Welcome back to News in Focus. We still have Muna with us. Muna, I want to touch on Keir Starmer. Obviously, he made this announcement on Tuesday evening. And I sat back and I tried to understand his statements. And let me tell you why. It's because this is the same United Kingdom over 100 years ago that gave the thumbs up for Israel to go ahead and say, use this Balfour Declaration and go ahead and do what you want to do in Palestine. And there, for me, really lies the hypocrisy in this recognition when it was you, the United Kingdom, that put it in place for this to occur.
The conditional recognition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, the foreign secretary stated that if Israel refuses to take steps towards peace, we will recognize the state of Palestine unilaterally. I mean, just think about that for a minute. I mean, the logic is very, very, very chilling. I mean, that it means that Palestinians will only be acknowledged only if their oppressor refuses to stop killing them, right? I mean, can you imagine what this statement, how loaded this statement is? This is a twisted logic. This twisted logic that Palestinian statehood, in where Palestinian statehood is treated not as an alienable right as it is to any other nations of self-determination, but as a bargaining chip, offered or withheld depending on Israel's behavior. That is, and of course, the reason why the UK is weaponizing this recognition, is because the UK is putting its own interest above Israel's. And this is in light of the massive demonstrations that have been going on in Britain. They are relentless. So they are really threatening the legitimacy of the government in such a way that it was compelled to make such a statement. But this statement, by all account, points to moral bankruptcy. It reduces the Palestinian existence to a negotiation tactic, where it should be an internationally guaranteed rights. In this sense, it inverts justice by implying that Palestinian right of self-determination is not inherent like it is for all Western nations, but conditional, granted only if Palestinians follow their Western superiors' instructions, or in this case, in the UK's case, to pressure Israel, not because it truly is concerned with the Palestinian suffering. If it was truly concerned with the Palestinian suffering, it didn't have to wait 2 years to make the statement. But to elevate the public pressure that their government is facing. So recognition, by all means, morally and ethically speaking, should never be conditional. It must be a reflection of the historical injustices inflicted upon the Palestinians, especially when it comes to the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom suggestion, the bargaining suggestion that that the state of Palestine, that it only recognizes the state of Palestine only if Israel refuses to agree to a ceasefire, exposes a very deep hypocrisy at the heart of its foreign policy that is not very different from the days of the Balfour Declaration.
Exactly, Muna, and that's where I want to touch on. I mean, as a Palestinian yourself, and I know the answer that you're going to give, it really becomes difficult to trust the word of the West. I mean, given that they have supplied practically everything from energy to weapons to Israel to conduct this genocide. And that's the thing, isn't it? It becomes very difficult to say, listen, we're going to take your word that, okay, you're giving the ability to recognize Palestine as a state, but flip the coin, you're still going ahead and assisting what is currently still the genocide in Gaza.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. So, as a Palestinian, as a Palestinian, and I'm sure I can speak for the majority of Palestinians and Arabs for that matter, we do not trust any Western intent concerning as a fair broker when it comes to Palestine, because we've always seen where their interests lie. And furthermore, trust is built on action, not on statements. And the West's actions have spoken loudly for over a century, from the Balfour Declaration to the US vetoes at the United Nations, from weapons shipments to diplomatic cover. The West has not only been a neutral actor, if we even want in best case scenario, but it's been an actor that actually enables the ongoing genocide. Just think about it this way: without the support of the genocide, if the genocide would have ended a long time ago if Britain and the US simply stopped sending shipments of weapons to Israel. But on one hand, shipping weapons, and even now they're doing it secretively, to Israel to continue on with this genocidal discourse, all while in the public front appear to be that you are sympathetic with the Palestinian plight, is very, very genuine and frankly insulting. Since October, for example, 23, the United States has delivered over 10,000 tons of weapons to Israel, more than 15,000 bombs and 50,000 artillery shells in just the first 6 weeks of the war. I mean, we're talking about 2 years. Imagine the magnitude. These are not abstract numbers. They are tools of destructions raining down on Rafah, on schools, on hospitals, on children. British drones, French bullets, American bombs are all being used to enforce the blockade, leveling entire neighborhoods, killing civilians. So this occasional expression of concern is very ill-concealed.
Muna, I've got 2 minutes with you only. I just wanted to get this question through to you. I mean, part of this whole recognition of Palestine is that Hamas needs to disarm itself, but also its political bureau must cease to exist within Gaza. In 2 minutes, this Western obsession of Hamas, what is your take on it? With them not wanting to even have negotiations with them, nonetheless have them ruling over the enclave?
The disturbing logic of the West is very disturbing. I mean, why it is not Israel? Not why is it not Israel rather than Hamas that must be disarmed? I mean, the constant international demand to disarm Hamas is not a call for peace, not a call to end genocide. It's a demand for surrender. It's basically a death sentence for the Palestinians. It reflects a very, very dangerous inversion of justice, one that asks the oppressed to be silent and defenseless, while the oppressor arms itself to the teeth. For Palestinians, the logic is not only insulting, it's deadly. If this armament is the path to peace or ending the war or ending the genocide, then let it begin with Israel, the occupying power, not those who are resisting the colonial domination, resisting the oppression. Under international law, the right to resist occupation is not only recognized, it is also a protected right. From Algeria to South Africa, people under colonial rule have asserted this right through political and armed struggle. Why then is it a right denied to the Palestinians, who have endured over a century of dispossession and oppression, and have endured more than 75 years of military occupation, and for Gaza nearly 20 years.
Okay, we seem to have lost Muna. Okay, got her back. You can continue,
So
Muna.
So the answer lies in the hypocrisy of the global system that equates colonizer with the colonized. Israel, the state currently carrying out the genocide, is treating as a partner in peace, while Palestinian, subject to bombing, starvation, deliberate starvation, and systematic apartheid, are told to lay down the only means they have to resist and defend themselves from all of these kind of oppressions. Why should disarmament? Why should the disarmed already? The Palestinians are largely disarmed.
Oh, we seem to have again lost Muna over there. Okay, Muna, we have you back. Muna, just 30 seconds for you to wrap up, please.
So you're asking the already disarmed to disarm again. The logic is appalling. Since October 23, Israel has launched a campaign of unprecedented destruction in Gaza. Entire neighborhoods flattened, over 1 million people pushed to starvation and death. Aid convoys are bombed, hospitals turned into rubble. These are not random acts of war. They are policies. They are systematic colonial policies, and they are war crimes under international law. Yet instead of facing consequences, Israel is rearmed by the very same Western nations who lecture Palestinians about nonviolence and about the need of Hamas to disarm itself. This provides a diplomatic cover for their military support. This isn't moral failure. It's complicity. And just final words in this context. Demanding for the Palestinians, and I don't say Hamas because Hamas are Palestinians.
Muna, I have to stop you there. Muna, I have to stop you there, unfortunately. Always a pleasure having you on. Shukran so much for joining us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
That's Muna Tareh, Middle East political analyst there. It's breaking down, of course, the two-state solution conference that is happening in New York. Well, we're going to be sticking on Palestine. Up next, I'm going to be speaking to B'Tselem. They released a report titled Our Genocide, labeling what is happening in Gaza right now as a genocide. I'll have that conversation after the break.